Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Dublin to Denver podcast with me, Colum Cronin. We are almost at mid-July. That means that the media are hungry for stories, and they had a doozy this week in Broncos country with Seth Wickersham's near novel on Sean Payton and the playoffs. I have my thoughts on it. My friend, colleague and co-host Stuart Roach has his thoughts on it. And we are going to delve into some of those alongside our look at PFF's all 25 Broncos team, or perhaps all 20. I think it's 20 rather than 25. And other happenings in Broncos country as we get ready for training camp, which cannot arrive soon enough. Stuart, how are you doing in the midst of Ireland's heatwave?
Bonsoir, mon ami. Très bien. Sorry, Colin. I'm practicing my French now. As like all good Irishmen, I'm adopting the country that I hope will stop England from winning the World Cup. So this time next week, I'll probably be practicing my Spanish. I'm doing well, Colin. I was sort of thunderstruck by the article that dropped, as much for its length as its content. I think novella territory was where we got. I was reading it on the phone. I was out and about, and I think my finger almost began to go numb from the amount of times I had to scroll to continue the story. I genuinely didn't expect it to be quite as in-depth as it was, and I'm not sure. Certainly, I wasn't aware of any notice that it was coming, so it just seemed to sort of fall out of the sky. And as you said, in a time when there's, I would say, mercifully little Broncos news, Column, considering the last few weeks with Jonathan Cooper, which still has shown no signs of resolution one way or the other. This was at least something that we could kind of sink our teeth into and discuss, because there was a lot of things to discuss in there, and a lot of interesting sort of sidebars and things like that. And also, Colin, it did have an aspect for me, and I imagine for most Broncos fans, of being really bittersweet, because I think it just hammered home just how close we were to getting to the Super Bowl, and you know, who knows, we could have won the thing. We certainly would have given a much better account, I think, than the Patriots did. And it just goes to show you just how quickly things can change in sport, and in some ways I think we had begun the healing process, getting ready for the new season. We were kind of on Bo Nick's ankle watch, and this brought it all back home. But it was certainly a hell of a read, and it was really illuminating when it comes to Sean Payton. And I do think there was probably certain things in there that shone a little light on perhaps why he stepped back and allowed Davis Webb to take over play calling. I think that we shall see just along that last. But certainly it made that decision, in my mind at least. It kind of it made it a little clearer as to why he took that step, and we'll delve into that, I imagine, Colin. My feelings on this are probably not as strong as yours, but hey, you know, as I said, at least it was something to talk about that wasn't something that, you know, has grown incredibly distasteful and difficult, and is the piece of Broncos news at the moment, given it's the kind of the phony war in between mandatory minicamp and training camp proper, which starts at the end of the month. So at least it was something that we could talk about that was a little bit more palatable than the Jonathan Cooper situation.
I just, my piece, or so with these things, Stuart, there can be entertaining, certainly, and you can feel, because of the way it's written, that you are getting a peek behind the curtain, and you are to an extent, but I would guarantee you that the wily old fox that is Sean Payton and one Patrick Smythe, who is called the veteran, Broncos communications chief by Wickersham, I think it's very easy to get sucked into this a little bit. And one of the things that I suppose, there are a few things that I think stand out. One of the things is there's a piece where he's talking about the Bills game and kind of the fake punt piece. And he talks about like counting, the Bills players and about Terrell Shavers and about Shavers being isolated and the Broncos run Rutgers special will hit Shavers with a wall of blockers. Here's the thing, though, Stuart. Shavers tore his ACL in the Bills' win over the Jags on the 11th of January. He actually played 65% of their snaps in the second half with a torn ACL. I think that is a story in and of itself around medical malpractice and why he played. But he did tear, and it was noted, and he was injured, and there were, discussions that evening. And Sean McDermott confirmed the ACL tear on Monday, the 12th of January. So why then is Sean Payton, if we are to believe this piece, looking at Sean Payton, who the piece would have you believe goes into every single detail of every single play, of every single preparation. I mean, the piece is at great pains to point out the long hours that Payton and the coaches put in. So I would just, that's a piece that stood out to me, right? That's a very interesting piece that I think. The other pieces that I'm interested in perhaps discussing with you are the pieces, right? A couple of things. One around Stidham, the line where Stidham says, you know what else will be flowing? The drinks after we win. I get gassing up Stidham, right, that week, and about him trying to get the players to worry about it. And, where he infamously says in the piece, I'm not worried about Stidham, I'm worrying about you other swinging dicks. Fine, I get all that, right? But then you watch what Stidham did, okay? And there seems to be, to me, an unwillingness to accept that Stidham was not good. Outside of that throw to Mims, he was awful. And the piece kind of goes into the mistakes made, and time and time again, Stidham didn't deliver, and Payton seems to just continuously defend him, and we've brought him back. But Stuart, to me, any defensive coordinator worth his salt, who, if we are forced to play Jarrett Stidham, and I hope that won't be the case, but you can't gas him up again, right? And you can pretend and you can say that it was on me and I should have done this and I could have done that. We didn't have a run game, right? And the whole idea that we were ever going to get 120 yards on the ground, good luck. But that is a piece that stood out to me, right? I get doing it during the week, but you saw what happened. The refusal to acknowledge it and bringing Stidham back, that concerns me, definitely. The other piece, Stuart, that jumped out to me is Sean Payton would be on the same page as I think you and I in relation to Vance Joseph, and we've talked about those kind of late season collapses. But the piece that also jumped out to me, I think the Bill Belichick thing is nonsense. I think more was made of that than ever. I don't think that was ever more than a ridiculous idea. But Payton did make what Wickersham kind of has as a throwaway comment, though he does have it in there, that Payton says, if we won it all, I'd probably walk away. I think there might have been a lot more to that, especially the way things, have played out since, and the peace and the hours and the sleep and the family. And as you said, handing over play call. Okay. I think there would have been a lot of truth in that. After reading that piece, I was left to lament the fact that the industry seems to have gotten rid of sub-editors. I think those would have been very useful in this instance. I was also left coming away going, yeah, damn it, we missed Bo Nix in that game. Quelle surprise, Sean. But also, I think Sean Payton would have walked away if the Broncos had won the Super Bowl last year.
So, yeah, I'm probably going to have to go backwards, Colin, because there was a lot of really good stuff that you raised there. I agree. And I think I think that perhaps the transition has already been set in motion in regards to Davis Webb. Don't forget, Davis Webb was a hot head coaching candidate, supposedly going into the head coaching job searches. And I think we kind of headed them off the path. In that regard, I think you're probably right. I don't think that you say that lightly. I think Sean Payton has had an incredible career. He's also suffered some major heartbreak at key points in the playoffs. You know, he's how many games has he got that have names, which can either be a great thing or a really bad thing. And, you know, I think that does take its toll. I think he's been at the grind for quite some time. I think Bo Nix probably gave him a new lease of life. And I think one of the things that shines through that is, Colum, I think that even though they have an occasionally fractious relationship, you can tell that Payton loves Nix, and you can tell that Nix really likes being coached by Payton. What came across for me in Wickersham's article was that Wickersham himself had little or no belief that Stidham was going to get the job done leading up to the game itself. That comes really clear. Maybe I'm looking out for it, but I thought that came through really clearly. You know, you've got the only time that this has ever been even attempted and has been done successfully before was Jeff Hostetler and the New York Giants. You know, ironically, Bill Parcells would be Sean Payton's great mentor. Of course, he rings him, asks for advice. There's a couple of things with that. They did have a run game, Colin, which they leaned on heavily in the Super Bowl. And they also had a genius in Bill Belichick who devised one of the all-time great game plans, where they allowed Thurman Thomas to go over 120 yards rushing, and they you know, he had to tell them that he had to pitch to an elite defense the idea that if Thurman Thomas goes over 120 yards, we win this game. And it took some doing, and this was Bill Belichick. So there's a difference. Vance Joseph has proved yourself, lots of people wrong with the way his defenses are played in the main, Column, but he is not Bill Belichick because nobody is Bill Belichick. So the Stidham thing was pie in the sky. We all drank from the Kool-Aid in the week leading up to, because we had to. It was copium. There's no shame in that. But realistically, as you said, Jarrett Stidham, he did himself nothing but harm in that game. And yes, it was incredibly difficult to go into an AFC Championship game without having taken a meaningful snap. But also we'd had, and not just in the lead into that game, Colin, we'd heard this previously on a number of occasions that Stidham was good enough to start for any number of teams in the NFL. He isn't. He might be a placeholder for the Cardinals, or he might be a placeholder for the Vikings, or a team that's really struggling for a quarterback, a team that's waiting, the Jets, basically for next season to get their franchise QB. You know, they've picks 1, 2, 3, or 4. But Stidham is not going to start for anybody else, and that's why I was surprised that we brought him back, because unfortunately Bo Nix has had ankle surgery in the off season, and I think the insurance policy that you need in place for Bo Nix, nobody wants to see him go down. We all hope Bo plays 17 games and then goes into the playoffs, but the reality is that's a tough ask, Colin. You know, he's had some issues with his ankles. This is a violent sport. These are huge people. There are 11 people, 5 of whom sole job is to hit him as hard as possible and as often as possible. That is, you know, these are dangerous times. So I like you, was kind of amazed that Stidham came back after just how poorly he played in that game, because it was awful. And yes, it was a tough defense in the Patriots. The weather was really poor in the second half, but the weather wasn't poor in the first half, Colin. It was cold. And he looked like a rookie making his first start. The other thing as well is then, as you said, Payton was then saying, we let him down. We let Stiddy down. We couldn't run the ball. How did he magically expect that to happen when we hadn't done anything to run the ball the minute J.K. Dobbins went down. I mean, it's not alluded to in the article, but the belief that we seem to have in RJ Harvey to become a bell cow running back after Dobbins went down last year was just preposterous all across the board. There's never any danger of that happening. And if we had such belief in RJ Harvey, why did we just draft John Coleman and bring J.K. Dobbins back? You know, it's paying lip service to it. So, I like you. I'm surprised it didn't came back. I mean, there was some kind of mention. I think ESPN floated the idea of the Broncos getting out trading for Spencer Rattler for a 5th-round draft pick. Absolutely, do it right now. Do it tomorrow. I wouldn't even think twice about it, Colin. If you can get Spencer Rattler for a 5th-round draft pick, and if he's happy enough to be Bo Nix's backup, absolutely pull the trigger and get it done ASAP. Because Spencer Rattler has done an awful lot more. Is Spencer Rattler the answer? No, he's not. He isn't. But is he a better quarterback than Jared Stidham? Categorically, yes. So I think was that the only was that everything? I think we touched on everything there. But like the other thing I think, Colin, for me was that I enjoyed the article. I like you. There was quite a lot of factual errors. But I'd read his book, American Kings, which is like the sort of a broad history of quarterbacks and the evolution of the position. I enjoyed it. It's a good piece. It's an enjoyable book. There's some interesting stuff there, but at the same time, they came out around, I think they were around the same time in America. I'm not sure if they got released over here at the same time. But I also then picked up Michael Silver's book, The Why Is Everything. And if you want to deep dive into the NFL, then that is the book for you. And there's lots of Broncos stuff in there as well, Colin, because it kind of in a roundabout way deals with the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. So obviously you've got lots of stuff with the Broncos, lots of stuff about Kyle, lots of stuff about Mike McDaniel, which was kind of I didn't realize just how great his ties to the Broncos were. Basically, Mike McDaniel's, this is really interesting, his mum met his stepfather because he lost his ball when he was going off to get an autograph, and a Broncos kit guy, I think it was, took pity on this kid and gave him a ball and told his mum, look, you know, if your mum is wondering why some strange man is giving you balls at the Broncos training facility, tell her to come down and I'll explain the situation. She came down, they clicked, and they're still married something like 20 odd years later. It's a fairy tale stuff. It's brilliant. But I didn't realize that's just how great the links were. So if you're looking for a book that really gives you some brilliant insights into the modern NFL and touches on a lot of Broncos history, I don't know Mike Silver at all, but he's a fantastic writer, and that's the book that I would be recommending. Even though Wickersham's book American Kings is a good read, to me, there's little or no comparison between the two, because Mike Silver is widely regarded and rightly so as one of the great NFL writers.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a little bit like everything. You can read it for entertainment, but know that there are, kind of wild and salacious pieces in there that things like. And sometimes they're presented in such a way, like the piece. I go back to the Belichick piece, and I really could imagine like Sean Payton kind of saying like, "Wow, Bill is 15 away from it. Imagine if he came here for a year. Given the team I have, I could get him to 15 wins." And it's presented as like, but Belichick was going to do it. It's a bit like the Peyton Manning. Idea that he had in that season with the neck injury at the Colts, that he was going to come back and be the red zone QB, which again was nothing more than this fanciful notion of Peyton kind of wishing he could make it happen. But it was never a thing. But it's very easy for it to then get spun to that. We will the other piece, Stuart, on whether it was real or not, is the piece around that the Chargers were the team that Sean Payton least wanted to face in the playoffs. Will he now face the Chargers with Mike McDaniel as the OC twice? So that will certainly be an interesting piece. We can now perhaps turn our attention to back to the PFF piece, the Broncos, the best players of the past 20 years. Now, remember, Stuart, this is the best players of the last 20 years, and so we're talking essentially they're going from kind of 2006 onwards. So I suppose I am. Let's start then, right? Let's start with cornerback, okay? And so I'm looking for your two. And you could choose. Just put through. They've gone three, so they have two CBs and a slot CB. So who would your two and your slot be?
This is actually, thank you for throwing me a softball early, Colin, because I going into this, the cornerback would have been in my opinion, the easiest of the three to pick. You're going to lose a couple of really good players as well, actually, but to me, it has to be Champ Bailey, Pat Surtain, and if they're going strictly nickel, I think Shaquille McMillan has a shot of making the next one if he keeps going the way he is, but I'm thinking probably Chris Harris Jr.
And that is what they went with, and I think that would be fair enough on that. I do think
Aqib Talib, I don't wear any chains, but I think when he sees me next, he's going to try and remove something from me. But I do think it just goes to show, Colin, that there's been some tremendous cornerbacks, in the Broncos over the years that there's even debate around somebody else getting into that, because it's, they're three up. Certainly Champ Bailey, Pat Surtain. I know Pat Surtain is only kind of midway through his career at this page, and probably not even, but they're two of the all times, you would have thought. And obviously Champ is in the Hall of Fame, and there's little or nothing to suggest that Pat Surtain won't be, unless something really untoward happens injury wise. He's absolutely on that trajectory.
Yeah, and I do think, given it's the slot, Chris Harris makes sense, though. Understandably, look, Talib had such an impact that you can see, why now.
Came an inside linebacker, if that's okay.
We'll go to another. Maybe. Well, certainly one of these will pick itself. So, and then we'll start going to the more contentious ones, perhaps. So on the edge, I need who your two edges would be. The 06 to 2026. Who are your top two Broncos edge players?
Well, clearly Von Miller is.
Yes.
And I would think, even though it was a relatively short sort of run in Denver, and I have him just pushing out Elvis Dumerville, who should have had a much longer run in Denver. I'm going to go to Marcus Ware. As much for his impact as his sacks, and and I know everybody speaks about Vaughn's magical playoff run that won the Super Bowl. But DeMarcus Ware was right there behind him, Colin. There really wasn't a huge amount stats-wise. I know Vaughn got the strip sacks, which resulted in touchdowns and game-sealing plays, but DeMarcus Ware was neck and neck, and particularly in the AFC Championship game, he was absolutely virtually unplayable. So they would be my two.
Yeah, those would be my two as well, and also for the fact of DeMarcus's leadership and his impact on Vaughn. But I do think Elvis has a very strong case, given he was absolutely sensational in his time in Denver. This is where PFF truly is a hollowed out husk of and don't get me wrong, it always had its issues, but they have gone, Stuart, right, for Von Miller, and the second is Shaquille Barrett. Shaq Barrett, who I like Shaq. Shaq was a good player, but Shaq's best year came as a Tampa Bay Buck, and Shaq's best as a Bronco came nowhere near DeMarcus Ware or Elvis. No chance in the past 20 years.
I mean, how many sacks did Shaq Barrett actually get for the Broncos, Colin? It couldn't be any more than 25.
He did. I mean, he almost equaled it in his first season in Tampa Bay, where he was now, and I think they've kind of gone with it based off of that, which again is in and of itself would not be would be too much given Elvis. Like Elvis had 17 sack season, and I know Shaq had 19 and a half in Tampa Bay. But in his time in Denver, Stuart, he did not have 25 sacks. He had 5.5 in 2015, then 1.5, then 4, and then 3, which gives you a grand total of 15 sacks?
Which is probably in and around what Shane Ray's had. Well, Nick Benito's had more than that in one season, I think, or close to.
So yeah, that one I did find entertaining.
I was wondering when spring this stuff on me. Okay, well, I had some minor issues with some of the offensive players, but nothing that would, have made me sort of pull my hair out. But that's preposterous. I'm sorry. And I think Shaq Barrett was great, and he was superb for the Bucs, and he was Marcus Ware like in the Super Bowl, and obviously that was a team effort by the Bucs, but he was again, like DeMarcus Ware, was unplayable. So yeah, if you're going to amalgamate players' careers, then fair enough. Barrett's been brilliant, but no, I'm not. I'm sorry, I'm not having that in any way, shape, or form. So, is that as bad as it gets, or is it worse?
Oh, Stuart, that is nowhere near as bad as it gets. Now, would you like next? We won't keep the worst for last. I think this is where we decide. Now, so you have a decision on what will make you most sad, or what will make you most angry.
I'm going to go anger, and then I'm going to follow it with sadness, because I think that's a better use of my emotions right now.
So the best Broncos safeties of the past 20 years, Stuart.
It's going to make me angry, because I would have thought this was pretty straightforward now, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's okay. Even though he didn't have the fortune of playing on the Super Bowl team, I would say Justin Simmons, because he was a PFF darling, and rightly so. He was absolutely superb for a long period of time, and he was superb on Broncos teams that were really not great. And then I would say, again, not exactly longevity wise what you might want, but either TJ Ward or Darian Stewart, I would have thought, given what they did when they were here, being part of that elite secondary. I guess, even though I really liked Darian Stewart and he was kind of a silent assassin, I thought TJ Ward was a hugely important pickup, because not only was he an outstanding safety, he was also nasty. And given the way the Seahawks had bullied us, I think we needed some of that. So I would go TJ Ward. And now that you're saying I'm going to get angry, I'm almost certain that TJ Ward is not going to be the second. I'd be really surprised if it wasn't Justin Simmons, but I don't like the way this is trending.
It is Justin Simmons is indeed one of them, and yeah, I mean, look, that's an argument one could make. I think a fair argument that TJ Ward and Darian Stewart could be 1 and 2 in terms of the safeties, and that would be fair. Equally, Justin Simmons, had some very good years as a Bronco. I think Stewart, I would say, that, you know, and it was only one season and he had a number of dropped interceptions. But I think if you look at safety play, I think, you know, particularly over the last 20 years, I mean, you go back in history and the Broncos had some absolutely superb safeties. But I think Hufanga potentially. But Stuart, they have decided in their infinite wisdom, Stuart, they have decided that, yes, our old friend, the
No.
I wish people could see your face. I wish people could see Stuart's face right now, because that is a golden moment that I may have to even chop off. Who is the second safety that they chose, Stuart?
It cannot be our new scout, Kareem Jackson, Colin. It just cannot be.
It is. It is.
All he did, he gave away flag after flag for helmet-to-helmet hits and was constantly out of position in his last few years. Oh, my God. It's terrible. Oh, that's sadness and anger mixed together and all different types of... Oh, come on, man. That's terrible. That's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, I think I am going to have to clip that bit out, because that is quite something. And I knew that. That's why I knew as soon as I saw it, as soon as I read it, I went, I can't wait for Stuart's reaction to this. So now, Stuart, I will now you still with your head in your hands.
Technically, that was anger. What sadness. Oh, no.
The sadness, Stuart, is, you know, because we are going to the factory of sadness, because the Broncos over the past 20 years have, I would say, struggled mightily at this position. And that is middle linebacker. So, who would you pick as the Broncos' best two middle linebackers in the last 20 years, Stuart?
Well, it's funny, Colin. This is a position that we've devalued hugely through the draft. And I'm just trying to think. Like, you know, there was obviously some good players in the Tebow year, and then obviously into the Peyton Manning stuff before we got to Super Bowl 50. But I think, and I mean, look, Alex Singleton has been a good player, but I don't know if he's like, I mean, I and the story is great, but I'm not sure if I would have him down as one of the two best. Do you know who I think, Colin, who was always massively underrated? And I don't think we've ever really been able to replace is Brandon Marshall. And I would probably pick Danny Trevathan, again with the sort of asterisk that he probably wasn't here as long as we would have liked, and we have struggled to fill his position, because he was you know, an underrated piece in the no-fly zone defense, and he brought a bit of nasty, and it was when himself and Malik Jackson were kind of you know, when we lost them, after the way Super Bowl champions tend to lose key pieces, I don't think we realized just how much of an impact that was going to have on the team. So I would say Brandon Marshall. I'd be confident in the PFF because I do think he was a PFF type player. But then I would sort of put the case forward for Danny Trevathan, even though he wasn't here as long as he ought to have been.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that is very fair. I say that this is sad because it's the fact that, you know, in our history it is a position where we've had outstanding players, right? Randy Gradishar, you know, Karl Mecklenburg, Fletcher, Al Wilson, you know, Tom Jackson, Mobley. So there's a you know a storied history, right? And I think Brandon Marshall, solid player. I think Danny Trevathan exactly brings the nasty. And I think part of what the sadness, Stuart, comes from the fact that it is positioned, particularly over the last, even during Sean Payton's successful tenure, where we have really struggled. But no, Stuart, they have gone for Brandon Marshall, but their other pick, Stuart, is if you were to pick an obscure name, could you guess who they might have gone for?
Wesley Woodyard.
So it's not Alex Singleton.
Wesley Woodyard.
Again,
pretty good player back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I again, if they had gone for Wesley, you'd have kind of gone, yeah, probably says a lot about the Broncos, but really, no, Stuart. They went for Alexander Johnson. Yep, Alexander Johnson. If you remember him, during his time here, he used to do the T-Rex kind of celebration.
I remember him. It took me a moment, which I think speaks volumes, because as much as I was stunned and irritated by Kareem Jackson's inclusion, it wasn't like I had to struggle to remember what he looked like. Alexander Johnson was a chap who had some legal issues that got cleared up, and then he came into the league late. He had some decent seasons, and then he seemed to just kind of disappear, right?
Yes, indeed, and he was with the Broncos for he essentially played he 2 full seasons. Let's say he joined in 2018, but he didn't even start a game. Then he had 2 seasons where he starts he plays in 50. He becomes a starter in 2019. And then he plays the entirety of the season in 2020. And then in 2021, he only plays 6 games. And after that, he went to Seattle, where he didn't start the game, and that was it. So in total, he started 34 games.
And this is 20 years worth of. So until a couple of years ago, it was a 16 game.
And
300 and something games were inside linebackers, and you're telling me a guy who played 1/10 of those is come on.
It's
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
In those games, Stuart, he had a grand total of 143 tackles.
I mean,
yeah. There you go.
We'll have that before the bye.
So that's how it's going.
It's not going great now. I'm not going to lie, though.
I told you. I did tell you.
Going somewhere, all right. It's getting consigned to the dustbin after this. This
right.
is taking a real turn.
Now let's go to the interior of the defensive line, right? And you can pick any 3 here that you want, because that's essentially what they've done. And then so looking for interior guys, nose guys, and who you think over the last 20 years might deserve a spot.
Do I have to pick a nose tackle, Colin? Because
no, you don't have. No. To be fair, they haven't. They've just stuck a guy who they picked at nose.
Okay. Well, then I think for me the first 2 are pretty easy, actually. I mentioned them there in passing a moment ago. Malik Jackson would be absolutely number 1, and again, I think Malik was a player that we didn't probably appreciate as much as we should have. And then he was gone, and then we really kind of understood what we'd lost. Second one, and this is not recency bias, I think he's a sensational player and a wonderful piece of free agency pickup and great coaching by Vance. I think Zach Allen it has been just a revelation, Colum. I think he was voted into the NFL top 100 again yesterday. And if I don't have to pick, I mean, and like I was going to say, if I had to pick a nose tackle, it would be a position that I would find really difficult to actually fill because, again, even if you look at the no-fly zone, Sylvester Williams is probably with all due respect, probably the weakest link on that defense. And it's like there's a strong argument to be made that DJ Jones is probably the best nose tackle that we've had, given that pot roast Knighton didn't stay here long enough, and his stay was really quite short. So cheating slightly, Colm, I'm probably gonna put Derek Wolfe. If I had to pick a nose tackle and if I had to choose between Wolfe and Zach Allen, I probably would pick Zach Allen because I think he's a better player, even though Wolfe did feature on those Broncos defenses that ended up, winning the Super Bowl 50. And Wolfe was a good player. But I just think Zach Allen is a more disruptive player. I know Wolfe did a lot of the dirty work. But I don't have to pick a nose tackle, thankfully, because I would have struggled hugely. And I probably would have gone for DJ Jones if I had to. But there's my three. So Malik Jackson, Zach Allen, and Derek Wolfe.
So you've gone for two of the three that they went for, because they went with Wolfe and they went with Malik Jackson. And again, I mean, I think Malik absolutely hands down. I think Wolfe, when Wolfe was good, he was very, very good. But that wasn't always the case. But and I think Zach Allen, if you were just going for defensive line guys, I would have Zach Allen over Derek Wolfe at this point. But they Stewart at nose, and again, like, this is supposed to be the best players, and that's where while Pot Roast wasn't around a long time. And DJ Jones, hasn't set the world on fire, but he's been very good. Stuart, they decided on Shelby Harris. Now, Shelby is a good interview. He's a fun guy, but one of the best defensive line guys of the last 20 years.
The best patter down of passes. In the last 20 years, the Broncos D-line for sure. But hey, look, Shelby was a good player, Colum, and he certainly was one of the better defenders in. Do you know what this just hammers home, Colum, is that there have been some long stretches where this team has been pretty poor, it has to be said. Like, some of these names are bringing me back to places that I have really no wish to return to. And I think we do advocate enjoying the good times, Colum, and I think we have really embraced where we're at now. And I think obviously Sean Payton coming has made a big difference, and getting Bo Nix has made a big difference. But wow, I tell you what, there's been some times where we have struggled, and look, I don't wish to tempt fate or anything like that, but if I'm a Denver Broncos employee, I'm putting a succession plan in place for Bo Nix. 12 years from now, I'm already beginning to kind of do some work on that, because I don't think any of us need to go through this ever again. So I think for me, like, just, I've never been a massive fan of PFF. I had some issues with some of the players on offense, but by and large, I think you could kind of, you could make cases for Marshall at wide receiver and Schefter at tight end, and most of the rest of them were pretty much spot on. Defense is an absolute shambles, and it's particularly shambolic given that there has been so many good defensive players that have played for the Broncos over the years that have not featured on this list at all. And there have been some that have been let's be honest, journeyman that bizarrely PFF have decided Alexander Johnson is like, Colin, with due respect, like to even pick Alexander Johnson over Alex Singleton is preposterous. You know, like, and not even the guys that, as you said, like, are, as I pointed out, like, was kind of struggling to come up with an obscure guy, Wesley Woodyard. Like, again, like, there's just no reason why. Like, what the hell are they doing in PFF? Alexander Johnson, come on, that's insane. That is insane.
Maybe Stuart, next week, and I will definitely have to clip up your reaction to Graham Jackson. But maybe what we can do is we should have a look at some of, and we won't maybe do a full roster, but maybe and not totally obscure players who never played, but maybe we should pick like our three our nightmare Broncos of the past. Of our time, or potentially, or even our time watching, maybe a top five. Remember when they played and how it made you feel.
Oh gosh. Okay. Oh, one last thing, Carl, was there special teams, or did they bother with that?
They did not bother with that at all.
As kicker, Prater or McMahon?
Prater for me, and anyone who can go out and do it drunk, kudos to them.
Punter, you're probably looking at who punter would be one that we've struggled at. Probably Colquitt from the Super Bowl year, I'd say, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see how our kid gets on this year. He ended up having quite a solid season last year, but it has certainly been. Well, and we maybe he's too niche, and we won't maybe we'll leave special teams aside, but who could forget the King era in Denver punting lower, when he came across from the Raiders, and he was heralded as truly an incredible signing. Lest we forget, he was going to be a stud and a weapon, according to some in Broncos country. He was an abject.
We got him to completely change his kicking style when he got here.
Whatever happened, it was a disaster, Stuart. An absolute and utter disaster. Marquette King came across, and did he end up actually playing anywhere after us? I don't believe he did.
I think maybe XFL or whatever.
Yeah, which tells you, like, so, I mean, I know he blamed it on us changing his kicking style. I'd love to know. There's definitely a story there, but he came in, Stuart, and I think it was around about, like, it was and it was just an abject disaster, to say the least, in his limited time in Denver.
You're in danger of missing out on the last position on the team, which is kickoff and punt returner. And you could have a shout for Marvin Mims, Colin. I think he's been an all-pro kickoff returner. But I do think, for me, just for the sheer carnage, both good and bad, when it came to kickoff and punt returns, I would probably go for Trindon Holiday. I just think there was enough. In a Trindon Holiday kickoff return, there was enough action to fill a highlights package on its own. As I said, both potentially good and bad, but certainly was never dull when Trindon was back there getting ready to return a kick.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where you never fully knew what exactly was going to happen when the ball was in the air, and was this going to be one of the most ridiculous muffs you've ever seen, or was he going to take it at like 93 yards to the house? And that is at least as you say, it was never boring. you know. So there was that. I think that's probably us done for this week.
Might be me done forever, Colum. I think I might have to retire. I don't think I can ever face the podcast like that.
I don't think.
Well, look, you weren't wrong. You said I was going to be annoyed by Kareem Jackson, and I was going to get overwhelmed by sadness when it came to the incident. I just can't. I'm flabbergasted, Colum. Flabbergasted. I am.
We will be back next week, and where before I end up going on holidays. So we will. Stuart will miss the start of training camp. Oh no, how terrible! Anyway, you can find Stuart over on Blue Sky SRoach123. I'm across social media at Colum from Cork. If you enjoy the podcast, please do rate, review, subscribe, or better yet, just tell a friend about us. As Stuart tries to digest the information I have imparted to him, all that remains to be said is go Broncos.
Oh, I'm doing the dinosaur dance. If people can only see it. Go Broncos. Alexander Johnson. Come on. Go Broncos.